This season wasn't loud. There were no fireworks. There wasn't anything shiny around it, but it was a season of me learning how to become an independent creator and how to start something from inception to development and creation and watching that thing grow. That was a becoming story for me. It came with small moments. It came with small wins that felt monumental. I am excited to be here recording the 30th episode of the first season. This episode today is not a recap, it's a reflection and a reminder for anyone listening that is in the middle of starting, that is in the beginning of something incredible, and that idea scares you. This episode today, I hope, is your opportunity to see a real world example of what it feels and looks like when you start absolutely from ground and build something incredible that you had no idea was inside of you. This is Success in Doses. When I launched Success in Doses podcast, I thought I was creating something about success, about growth. What I didn't realize was that I was creating this entire project and it was capturing a story of my becoming. Not my becoming as something shiny or impressive, but my becoming more honest, more grounded, my becoming more aware about what success cost and what it quietly gives back in return. This season wasn't loud. There were no fireworks. There wasn't anything shiny around it, but it was a season of me learning how to become an independent creator and how to start something from inception to development and creation and watching that thing grow at its own pace, no matter how badly I wanted it to grow quickly and fast. Watching that process happen for me, that was a becoming story for me. It came with small moments. It came with small wins that felt monumental. It left me with conversations that I sat with a little longer, that I reflected upon a little more intentionally, which are all things that I wanted to develop and grow in areas I wanted to develop in. Creating this podcast solo, alone, uno, really gave me that. Somewhere between the interviews and the solo podcast, I realized that my hypothesis about success was correct. It doesn't happen in leaps and bounds. It really does happen in incremental steps. And today's episode, I am excited to be here recording the 30th episode of the first season and knowing that I had intentions to record 30 episodes for season 1, and I've done that. That could not have happened with your support. This episode today is not a recap, it's a reflection and a reminder for anyone listening that is in the middle of starting, that is in the beginning of something incredible, and that idea scares you. This episode today, I hope, is your opportunity to see a real world example of what it feels and looks like when you start absolutely from ground and build something incredible that you had no idea was inside of you. This is Success in Doses. Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me for the final episode of season 1 of Success in Doses. I cannot believe that we are here. I can't believe that I am here recording and publishing today the last episode of a first season. This project was birthed out of a lot of intentionality, a lot of fear and insecurity, but also commitment and clarity about what I know my voice to be and not wanting to compromise on that and the way that surfaced in a space that I knew a void existed. I wanted to create a place and space for young professionals for conversations about resilience, conversations about intentionality and clarity, conversations that would be transparent and honest about success and what obtaining success looks like, feels like, actually is in a professional climate that continues to be increasingly challenging and opportunities continue to be fleeting for some, while others seem to be reaching heights that only seems like dreams to the rest of us. But it's all about code, and it's all about information. It's all about sharing guidance and having effective mentorship around our goals. That was my hypothesis in creating this podcast. And the quiet success that I've been able to have with the podcast so far, with only 6 months of creating and working on it, is reassurance that there is appetite for this type of conversation and content in this area, both in the profession of pharmacy and beyond. And I'm sure of that because I hear from listeners that have nothing to do with healthcare, and that the things I'm talking about in this episode resonates with them. I appreciate that feedback. And so this episode today, I wanted to reflect a little bit. And one of the first things that came to mind about what I really wanted to share about success and doses in these first episode is that becoming is quieter than I thought. I thought that my becoming a solo podcaster would have to be this incredibly loud, incredibly shiny thing that I would need to put all this time and energy into. And it turns out that it had nothing to do with that. It had more to do with the clarity that I had and the intentionality that I placed on the project than it did all the shininess that I wanted it to have and the polish I wanted it to have. This season, I had recorded some episode wearing only one earring. I had to record entire episodes over because my mic wasn't on or I forgot to press record. It has been full of so many twists and turns and learning opportunities throughout it that at the corner of all of these learning opportunities, I emerge more assured, more confident, and knowing that I know the first things first, press record, and second things after that is to make sure the mic is plugged in, for God's sakes, right? But you all have been here through all of that, and I wanted this episode to just really be about my reflection and what it's been like to show up for you every single Monday since June 2nd to where we are today. And really just talk about what we think growth should feel like. We think growth should feel obvious, celebrated, and visible. Creating this podcast, I learned that it doesn't need to be any of those things. It can be quiet because I'm sensing my growth. I'm sensing the win. I'm sensing the development within myself. I'm getting emails and DMs of people whom the conversations and the things that I am talking about, they feel like it's resonating with them. Those things feel like wins to me that numbers can't quite deliver for me because my goal is to always reach that one person. And I'm seeing evidence that I am reaching that 1, that 10, that 30, that feel like the episode today really did speak to them. So that's one thing I really think emerged from these first 30 episodes. This season also showed me that consistency is so much louder than momentum. Chasing high numbers and chasing virality does not immediately mean that it's going to give me sustainability, but really the discipline of making sure that I sat down and carved out time despite having a demanding full-time job to record multiple episodes and commit myself to promoting and doing all of that promotion by myself and alone with no paid or hired help. It proved what I talked about very early in this season about the power of discipline, passion, motivation, and all these different things. They're fleeting. However, the discipline that I have had to build around creating this podcast has been one that has changed a lot of different things in my life and other places in my life because I am no longer as intimidated to start anything new because I know that it's a question of discipline, not necessarily whether or not I think it's going to blow up or it's going to do anything. So that component of this season has been very, very, very great in becoming. The second thing I learned in creating this podcast is that my identity shift long before this podcast came to be. Because yes, there were some changes, some growth and development that the creation of the podcast did. However, I think that this podcast came on the hill of so many changes. I was a new mom, and then as a new mom, I lost my mom. And then that grieving process and that grief and coming through that. And then also, as I was preparing and enrolling my in in hospice, I accomplished an incredible thing professionally, which was a goal for me to become a director before turning 40. And I did that. I secured and signed on to my job offer of becoming a director the same month that I signed paperwork to enroll my mother in hospice, and then losing my mom within the first month of being in that role. I cannot say to you how much all of those changes, the good things were happening alongside the difficult things, and I was becoming a new person. And that change happened long before the podcast and long before I surfaced. And so the reason why I think this season was a season of becoming is all of the personal things that and the changes that I was undergoing as a woman, as a wife, as a professional, as a business owner. All of these changes were happening right in front of my eyes long before I had the words and the confidence to know how to express what those changes were and express those changes in a way that could benefit someone else. The pain of my loss and losing my mom, the pain of a creative pivot, the pain of starting from ground zero after being very instrumental in creating something else in collaboration and walking away from that to come and start from ground up. The fear that comes from that and whether or not I could replicate that success on my own. I was becoming this really fierce and confident, but also there was a lot of pain there, right? I was grieving. I was going through a grieving process while all of the creation and the business moves and the professional moves were happening. And it's important that I reflect on that and understand the power and the impact that that had on the person that emerged on this podcast and the direction I wanted to set for the podcast. And I really kind of sum all of that up to say that your life really does not begin to change until the trust you have in yourself starts to change. When I started trusting myself more with my business decisions, I made them more confidently and more swiftly without a lot of time to figure like, do I want this? Do I not want this? I did that. And also promotion, promotion usually shows up after perceptions shift, right? Like you don't start to feel like you are elevating and growing until the way you think, see, and interpret the things that are going on in your life, until you start to think and see those things differently. And I think grief was a really powerful tool and giving me that perspective shift and understanding that I was chasing all of the wrong things when all along what I knew to be true about myself as a business, as a creator, as a voice of authority in this space was that I was a person that was in it to change people and help people change and help people realize that they were powerful and if they place intentionality in the decisions that they made, that they are fully capable of realizing any goal and dream that they had, right? And so reconnecting with that is where the courage of creating the podcast came from. This podcast also showed me that if I decided to create this podcast and to create this other layer to my business where I have conversations with my community, the people that follow and trust my voice, I needed to understand that growth and success, there's no endpoint to it. And that's difficult to convey when a lot of people I work with, I'm helping them secure a job. I'm helping them secure a match at phase one. There's an endpoint to that. And so the podcast and learning about success and myself, investing and what that actually means for me, I realized that if success is the goal, there is no endpoint. If continuous improvement is the goal, there is no endpoint. With each step we take forward, we are looking for how to make the next one better, more intentional, more meaningful for ourselves. And in creating these first 30 episodes, that's what I learned. At first, it was like, I want to create a podcast. And then creating that podcast, it's like, I want that podcast to be meaningful. And then what does that mean? In creating that meaning, I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that. And it was really, really important in these last 29 episodes coming up to this 30th in understanding that there is no endpoint with success. We are always looking for better ways and ways to do what we've continuously done in better ways, more meaningful way, more intentional way. And for me, that is impact and reach. I am interested in having the student pharmacist that feels like they are lost, they are at it on their own, they can't seem to find the right mentorship and guidance. When that student pharmacist finds me and they're like, I was so lost It was such a pleasure finding you on YouTube, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. You are saying all of the things that I have no one around that is showing or telling me how to go about it. I feel like that is a win. That gives me more of a win than anything else that I was in it for. The other thing I learned about this podcast is becoming requires staying present. I want to become the number one podcast that is recommended to student pharmacists that are looking for guidance. I want to become the number one podcast and destination for student pharmacists and young professionals that want to know how to succeed in the workplace. I want to become the number one podcast where anyone who is looking for motivation and looking to be uplifted, no matter what stage they are in their career, I want to be the number one podcast for those people. And that desire of becoming and that desire of wanting to be all those things has sometimes pushed me to not be present and not appreciate where I am today. Where I am today is a developing podcaster, a developing creator that is in the beginning and learning phases of this thing, right? And growth and development sometimes requires us to tune into what's happening right now because there are lessons. With every episode, I study the statistics. I study how the reels perform on TikTok versus Instagram versus LinkedIn. I experimented with doing episode recaps. I experimented with sending and doing blogs. And I experimented with a lot of different things to figure out what exactly is resonating with the listeners, what exactly is resonating with my target audience and population. And a lot of that research and all of those skills really came out of being accepted in a pre-accelerator program with Black Ambition and Act House. That program really opened my eyes to why and what it means to invest to knowing who my listeners are, what their pain points are, designing a system, a process, and a game plan for how I'm going to help them find me because I know that they're looking for me, right? And so I invested heavily in developing myself and learning about you and what you want and what you're looking for so that I can make sure that I am showing up for you, not just in the right manner, but that I am showing up for you in a way that really does translate into something meaningful for you because I genuinely am in it rooting for your success. So it means nothing if I'm doing all this work and creating all this content and it never, ever gets to you. And I really have to credit the Pre-Accelerator program with Black Ambition and Act House for forcing me to think about the creation of the podcast, the molding of the podcast, and even Resi Prep as a business and something that I needed to listen to all of you. And so that part of becoming with this process was very, very, very instrumental in the success I've had this past year on this platform. And I just really learned that the hustle can be a gimmick sometimes, seeming busy and constantly going to the next and the next and the next thing, because hustling without reflection leads to burnout and lack of fulfillment. And if there's anything that I fear more than just zero traction is lack of fulfillment in my goals, lack of fulfillment in accomplishing something and feeling like I did all of this work and I've got nothing to show for it, right? And so I think that staying in the present has been very helpful in preventing me falling into that trap of just having a process or a success that really translates into nothing meaningful for me, right? And so looking ahead to 2026, I am like out of here with the level of excitement that I have with what I've got planned for 2026. 2026 is going to be a conversation focused year and bringing back the guest interview model for the podcast, partnering with some incredible voices and very powerful voices to bring you those things that you care about, which is how do I find success in my own way in a professional climate that is evolving so fast that by the time I get a hold and grasp of this skill, a different thing is now required or something else is required of me to succeed. And the guest list continue to grow every day. But what I'm promising you and what I'm telling you is by giving me this opportunity to regroup and build, 2026 is about transformation, and it's about strategic moves that will blow doors wide open for us, whether or not someone remembered to send the ladder down. I want to thank you for your support. I want to thank you for your trust. And I want to thank you for your feedback. And it all started with the discipline and consistency and the commitment that I made that I will show up every day with something meaningful and something of value to give you. I want to thank you for trusting me. I want to thank you for starting with me every Monday, including this morning. And I want to promise you something. In 2026, the things that are coming from me and from this platform will be meaningful things, things that help you in your journey of becoming. I cannot wait for what the new year has in store for us. I wish everyone a happy holiday season, a wonderful New Year's, a safe one, a productive one. And for those of you going through match, I wish you nothing but success because I am coming back in January with a major event that is going to help you secure your match at phase 1. And that announcement is something you have to stay tuned for. Success is an incremental thing that you secure with every baby step you take forward towards a dream, an ambition, anything that you want to do. It starts with one tiny little decision to say that you're going to try and try with intentionality. Thank you for making Success in Doses a reality for me, and thank you for starting all of your Mondays with me. I will see you at the top of 2026 with a lineup you will not believe. As always, have a wonderful week, a wonderful holiday season. I'll see you in 2026. Okay, bye.